just take it, go from here. Do your
Cool.
thing.
Well, kind of like I was telling you before we got on here is like, I know we got an hour, but if you're like me, when I was in school and I wanted to get out of class as soon as possible, we're just going to get straight to the point and be direct and short and like get the value and then get out of here so you can actually go start using this stuff.
Sweet.
Because if you're like me, you're busy as hell and you're like, I got shit to do. I need to learn, but same time, like I probably don't need an entire hour to beat this stuff in my head. Plus, if you learn like how human beings retain things, we only really retain 10% of what we hear. We retain 20% of what we see, but then we retain like 50 to 80% of what we either teach or what we go do. So it's like, I don't really want to take a bunch of your time blabbing on here, which is kind of part of this science and art of sales conversations that I see, too many agents saying blah, 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 when blah will work. And that's probably the best part of this, is that humans aren't even listening or retaining everything that you have going on. So when you think you're getting your point across, or you think that you're being brilliant, trying to impress them and all this, like they're not even registering, they're not even checking it, especially with today's, attention spans being smaller and our ability to focus being smaller. Like being short, to the point, and succinct and direct is going to have way more of an effect with your people than thinking you got to like give them a paragraph for forever. And I'm trying to remember which sales trainer it was that was coaching me this, because really, like, I can take credit for some of this stuff, but a lot of it is just a myriad of me being coached by a lot of really great salespeople and trainers that have gone through there. Jared James being one of them, Adam Bailey being one of them, Stephen Myers, Jeremy Meyer is probably the best like non-industry specific sales trainer that I've gone through. And he really focused on being neutral with people instead of being like overly enthusiastic and this kind of like fake energy type of person. Like you really want to be neutral and skeptical and, objective about the situation. Not too high, not too low. Like you have energy of presence, but you're not necessarily like being this firecracker up your ass, like fake person. And, part of it is cussing, not being overly, ridiculous with it, but just being yourself, being genuine, because people can feel the genuineness from you. And I'm going to go over some of like our, opener conversations and ending statements we use to start a conversation and end them. But I wouldn't focus too much on like the exact words to say, although some of these words will be helpful on everything. What it comes down to more than anything is the energy of your tone, and people can feel what your intentions are and what you're there to do for them, and how you're going about this. It's not like I have some magic book of slick phrases and words that you can say to just somehow turn this buyer into a good buyer or seller into a good seller on everything. So, but we do need to have a solid like sales process that leads and guides our people through to a result that they want. Because at the end of the day, like our marketing and sales processes are the service we deliver to our people. And to the degree of how good we're at doing that, like is to the degree of we're going to get the results done for them. Because yes, relationships are important in real estate, but at the end of the day, if you can't get them what they want, you can't get their house sold, you can't get the house bought, you're not going to have a good relationship with them. And a lot of that comes down to having a good service process and a good sales conversation. And what we get paid to do primarily is communicate with people to lead them through to a result. And I don't like to use the words like take control of the conversation and get them to do things, because sometimes that's what we think we need to do. And then that comes out in our intentions and it feels that way, instead of viewing this as a process that leads people through a transaction, leads them to make a decision, leads them to a result. Even if that decision is, I'm not buying a house, you shouldn't buy a house. I'm not able to financially, I'm not willing to mentally and emotionally, but my marketing and sales conversations I'm having with people are helping them decide in an ever complex world, like how, like, do we want to do this? Can we do this? How do we want to do it? With all the more details and features and opinions and advice and data out there, it's harder than ever for our people to make decisions, which is one of the hardest things ever for a human being to do. And that's our primary job, is to help them make a decision. Yes or no. Get to that yes or no as fast as possible so that they can have clarity, and also so you can have clarity, so you're not chasing somebody that's not worth your time and energy. Because right now there's people out there buying and selling real estate, but there's people that either can't buy, and there's nothing against them, but they're acting like they can buy, or they're interested, or they're kind of want to, but they're not really in a life situation that gets there to that. So a lot of your marketing sales processes aren't just filtering for the right people, you're also kicking out the wrong people. That was, I think, Jared James that taught me that one. And that brought a lot of clarity to me, that it was like, I'm not trying to convert every single lead, every single person, all my friends and family. I really just want the best leads, the best clients. And my marketing and sales process helps me identify who's going to be a good lead, who's going to be a client, and who's not, so I can let go of those people and I can, forget about them in a lot of ways, because I do believe in abundance and there's plenty of deals, plenty of opportunity. Like I think our market did like 14,000 sales last year. So that's 28,000 transactions. No way in hell am I going to be able to do all of those. And so I have a grasp of the size of that. I just want to sell 100 of them. And I want to sell 100 of the best ones. And the way you sell 100 of the best ones is you got to let go of some of the stuff that's good in order to go for the best, like the great ones. And you do that through a quality marketing sales process, because if somebody can't even communicate with you, won't participate, won't take ownership, won't be responsible, do what they're supposed to do in the first part of the conversation, they're going to be that way throughout the entire, piece of the transaction. And that one deal could cost you 5 deals of better clients, better paying people, because we're not filtering enough for the right people on everything. You kind of got to view it like a doctor views triage, and you can't save everyone. You can't convert everyone. And you need to give the best amount of time and attention to the best amount of people to do the most good for the most amount of people, because it's rooted in genuine intentions to help the most amount of people. It's not rooted in how can I get by with doing the least amount possible, so I can get paid the most amount of money with the least amount of work. It has to come from a place of I'm trying to help and save and work with the most amount of people I can. And in order to do so, I got to let go of some of these people that maybe just have a broken leg, but are going to live because I got these 3 heart attacks I got to get to use the analogy of a doctor. Maybe I need to not necessarily pay attention to this person that has a very difficult situation or is very slow to respond or just isn't really showing the signs of being an active hot buyer because they don't have a big enough life situation, because I need to get to these 2 reloads in this divorce situation, because those life events drive the motivation level of these people way more than anything else that goes on in the real estate market, the prices, that kind of thing. Because at the end of the day, like, people buy and sell real estate because of life situations. And the quicker you can get into that, the better, which is usually what we go to right away. So like when somebody gets on our website, or even if it's your friends and family, and I want you to take into context, like this process applies whether you're talking to an online lead, you're talking to your friends and family, anybody that's looking to buy or sell real estate. It's almost like a vetting and a filtering process that you use that is a service that helps them decide, like, what do I want? Do I really want it? When do I want it? On everything. And it kind of follows the scientific method a little bit. And it's a Socratic form of selling where you use skilled questions, and skilled questions get them talking 80% of the time and you talking about 20% of the time. And sometimes when I do these and I talk to people about this, like, they get the wrong idea because I'm talking a lot, and I'm coming off on like a very like aggressive nature, because that's kind of how I am. But like when you see me in a sales conversation or listen to it, it's actually very gentle. It's very soft. It's very, not necessarily taking a secondary role, but kind of a facilitator role where they're in charge. I'm asking them questions. I'm helping them make decisions. I'm helping them process these things. And a lot of times, like with online leads, we're catching them so early in the process, they're not even quite sure yet what they want. They just saw a house they liked, or they sign up on your website, and they're 3 to 12 months out in the process. And so a lot of times they don't know a lot of these things. And your job is to help them sort through that, filter that out. On everything. And the thing is, if you're running kind of an old school model, which is let me just go hustle all my friends and family, you kind of have to put up with a lot of bad behaviors of clients, essentially. And I was just going over this in Florida a couple of weeks ago when I went to a sales mastery event down there, and they had a phrase of the more you lead generate, the less you got to tolerate. And I'd say that's true. And I'd also say with that, though, is like the more you conversate, the less you got to tolerate. So the more people you talk to, the more you take enough action and run the numbers, the more you just get lucky and find the laydowns and the easy ones, because it really should not be this difficult, with the right person. Because there's a phrase, another one of my trainers told me, which was, you can't say the wrong thing to the right person, and you can't say the right thing to the wrong person. So a lot of this is coming down to making sure you're finding the right people, you're marketing for the right people, you're generating the right leads, but then you're also still vetting them after the fact, because we all know it's easier to never get leads these days. You can get them from Facebook, from Google, Zillow, Realtor, open houses, friends and family, expireds. It doesn't really matter. You have to have an abundance of leads and then filter them down to the people that you really want to go hard and deep on with everything. And, you got to really do that through a sales process that has skilled questions. That's really more of like a vetting and a filtering process than it is like I talk people into buying and selling houses. And I'm so slick and amazing with my words, and I'm so persuasive and influential. It comes down to more like I'm so service oriented, and I have so many of these conversations that are service oriented that lead people to what they want and help them decide what they want. That's really what you're doing is a service. Like it's marketing and sales as a service. Everything we're doing is a service. The job of an agent, the service we provide is talking to them about houses, putting out education, content about all that stuff. And the consistency of it, the more you do it, the better. And the other side of this, you got to take into account too, is like, you're not going to convert and sell these people or win them over in one conversation. These are repeated conversations over time, and you have to kind of look at it as like the very first conversation. I'm not even necessarily trying to book an appointment with them right away. I'm just trying to establish a connection. I'm trying to get in their personal phone book. I'm trying to just learn who they are, what they have going on. I'm gonna kind of walk you through, our online process, but also and I'll work you through how I do this with friends and family too, because the way I view it, and honestly, whether you want to agree with it or not, all leads are online leads. Even your friends and family are online leads. If you don't think they're not on websites looking at houses, even though they're a friend and family, you're missing where we're at in today's day and age. Because if they're not on your website, they're on Zillow, they're on Realtor, they're on my website, they're on someone's website, they're on all these websites. So even though we want to act like our friends and family aren't online leads, they are online leads because they're in somebody's database, they're in somebody's system, they're getting the houses from somewhere. You need to be the one doing it. And that's kind of my biggest strategy, is to get people on an email list of getting houses so that I can watch their activity of how many houses are they looking at, what are they looking at there, so that I can know who to apply the sales conversations and who to apply my personal time, energy, effort, skills to, that's going to have the highest probability of payoff for me. And they kind of were just going over this for any of you that were at this referral agent mastery class that Adam put on recently you have to kind of funnel everyone in your highest level of probability to close, as compared to people that have a lower probability, have a lot more automations and that kind of thing. So there's a lot of, value to view, understanding a funnel and really running a marketing and sales funnel on everything. But typically on our opener conversations, if it's an online lead, and honestly, these processes work in person too. I can do this at an open house. I can do this through a phone call. I can do it through a video text. I can do it in person with your, friend that asks you, how's the market? Or they ask you some generic question about real estate, period. And from there, you're kind of like, okay, where do I go with this? And you don't want to be over eager with this. You want to be slow. You want to be present. You want to be calm. And it kind of depends on your personality type and who you are. I'm a real high D. I'm a real driven person. I'm aggressive, and that can come off too hard sometimes, come on too strong. And so I had to learn to actually tone it down, to actually slow it down, go soft, go gentle, be more of an open, approachable person than somebody who's just hammering at people with everything, because it scares them, because the thing you got to really realize in today's age is that people are not necessarily scared of the real estate market and the finances and everything else going on. They think they know more than ever because of Zillow, because of the internet, because of everything else. They're not necessarily scared of that as much as they're scared of us. They're scared of how we approach them, because they don't hate phone calls. They hate what happens when they get a phone call. And it still happens, because I get them too. And I'm from telemarketers or other salespeople. And I'm like, who is teaching this crap still? Because it is terrible. And it's I like phone calls. I get annoyed when people want to text and they want to email and this and that. And anything important happens over a phone call in a sales conversation. So as more and more people are running away from the phone and getting away from the phone, and carriers are blocking phone calls and everything else, the value of holding a quality conversation goes up. So as everything gets automated, systematized up, all the stuff that isn't that way, personal touch goes up in value. So whether that's a video, a sales call, conversation, what have you. But I started off in any context you want to look at it is like, I'm curious, are you looking at houses for fun, or are you looking into making a move? Are you asking that question about how's the market for fun, or are you looking into making a move? So I'm just going to role play with myself real quick, because I don't have anybody to role play with here. And I've done this enough where I like practices in my head, and I've role played enough where if an online lead, let's say they register on my website, and we run leads very generically, just homes for sale, Wichita, Kansas is one of our biggest keywords that we target, because we want to get to talking to these people as soon as possible. Like as soon as it enters as a thought in their mind, we want to be there, the one having access to them, communicating to them, sending the messages, sending them houses, having a conversation to see where they're at. So we have text messages that go out to them. We also have an AI bot that talks to them. We start sending them houses right away. And we use their name, because their name and personalization is the biggest thing possible. I do have a VA that helps me with a lot of this. I used to do this a lot myself when I was first starting out. If you're like, oh, I don't have a budget, I don't have a VA. We all have KV Core, or like I use Chime or some type of CRM. The best CRM is the one you use. I'm not going to get into a debate of who's got the best CRM and all that, because they're all vehicles, they're all cars, and it depends on the drivers, which is you. If you use the CRM really well, build it out, function it, get in it day in and day out, it's going to work for you. And kind of the funny analogy that I use is like, which one are you checking more every day, Facebook and Instagram or your CRM? Because one pays you a lot more than the other, but which one do we probably check more often than the other? Go check your CRM as much as you check Facebook, Instagram, and checking out what your friends are doing and everything else. Go check your CRM like it's your Facebook and your Instagram and everything else, because that's where all the money's at. That's like shooting fish in a barrel, is in your CRM on everything. So as a lead registers and they get on the site, I do call them, but we don't like call the hell out of them where it's like 7 days of pain and call them twice a day nonstop till they answer. Like, honestly, we call them about 5 times in the first month. And it's like, if they don't pick up, like they're not picking up. And we know our pickup rate's about 15%. So if you make 100 calls, you're going to have 15 pickups. And, I think we have like 18 or 19,000 leads in our system now, but you really don't need that many leads. Like I only feed myself about 100 new leads a month on everything. And you could do really well on 100 new leads, because it's not about how many leads you generate. It's how well you convert them, and you convert them through good conversations. Because there's a point where I was generating 600, 700 leads a month, but I wasn't converting them. So what's the point? Like I was just burning money. Like I was just throwing money on fire, because I was like, hey, if 100 leads are good, let's get 600 or 700. Why not? Just throw them in there and see what happens. But we weren't making connections. We weren't converting with people, and we were so overloaded. Like we had too much on everything. And so recently, like I've scaled way back so I can focus on quality conversations with people more, and really hone in on just who are the best leads that need the best service. Because you guys have seen it when you have a hot lead. They're needy, they're high maintenance, they need a lot of work, a lot of attention, a lot of time, a lot of care. Like they're hounding you, they're pestering you, like they're hustling you, like more than like you are them. And it's almost like I got to keep up once you find a good one on everything. But they don't start off that way. You got to work them into that, and you want to be the one that they're pursuing, but you do that by starting off by being the pursuer, but then you get pursued. And so online lead registers, I'm trying to stay on focus with this. Online lead registers, I got their name. I'm just going to use Katie as an example, and I'll call them and I'll say, hi, is Katie there? They'll be like, yes, it is. I'll say, hey, Katie, this is Ben with Team Home Hero. I'm the guy that's been emailing you houses to check out. And I was curious if you're looking for fun or if you're looking in to make a move. And, from there, you're going to get a lot of responses of like, oh, I'm just looking. Or if they go, I'm just looking for fun. Like, oh, I'm curious what has you looking for fun. Well, we're thinking about getting a bigger house, but, it's a ways out. It's going to be like 6 months out. And I just don't know if we're quite ready yet, but we just kind of want to start looking at houses and see what that's there. They say, no worries. Most people get on our website and they're usually a ways out like that. I just want to make sure you're getting the houses you want to see first. I'm not trying to book an appointment. I'm not trying to close them. I'm not trying to sell them on being with me. I just want them looking at my emails with my face on it and have them looking at houses. And I want them using my Zillow, my website, instead of using Zillow, Realtor.com, anyone else's website that's out there on everything. So it starts off as a service call. It's not a sales call, even though they're going to treat it like a sales call. They're going to think it's a sales call. And they have what's called a reactionary defense response, RDR. And I'll give you the best example of this is like when you walk into a clothing store anywhere, someone walks up to you and you're like, hey, can I help you with anything? You're like, nope, I'm just looking. Why did we do that? Like, why did we just say like, no, I'm just looking, even though you're like, no, I need these shoes that are size 11 and I wonder if you have them. But immediately we've been conditioned to block salespeople to just be like, no, I'm good. I'm just looking. I don't need help. And then as soon as you need something, you're like, where's that damn salesperson? I need help. Why aren't they here? Blah, blah. So you have to just kind of realize that like, it's not you that they're rejecting or saying no to. It's that they have conditioned responses to salespeople that's been built into them, that you're not going to be able to overcome that other than doing what one of my other coaches and mentors, John Cheplak, talks about, which is stay in the box. You cannot exit the conversation too early, and you're not going to talk them into this, but you can stay present and warm and open, inviting, and stay in the box with them when it gets a little uncomfortable for you and them and everything. And the best analogy I want to use this is like a doctor as well. If you think about doctors, you know, they help you get rid of a bigger pain by inflicting some other pain in order to solve your bigger pain. So there's going to be some things we do that make people a little bit uncomfortable, a little unsure, but we still have to do them because it's for the greater good of what's the benefit of addressing this bigger pain that people have with them. So calling somebody in the middle of the day, even though they might be a little bit fussy because you interrupted them and it wasn't on their schedule and they're slightly annoyed and irritated by that, is part of the game. And it's something that we're not going to be able to change. We just have to get over it and learn to work through it on everything. And you do that by staying in the box. And you got to do it with, you know, building up your self-love and your care for yourself so that you're not going to get feeling like you're rejected because somebody, you know, was a little irritated with you or was a little, you know, annoyed by you. But in the end, like, they don't remember how mad they were at you when you solved their bigger problem, their bigger pain. And because it's the approach you have. Like I said, people don't hate phone calls. They hate what happens when they get a phone call. But you're probably still going to get these reactionary defense responses by people because they're scared animals. They're just trying to protect themselves. They think you're a threat at this point. And until you've proven otherwise, like, they're lumping you into everything else that they think you are. And so the sales conversation, if you want to continue with that conversation, you're like, hi, is Katie there? Yeah, this is she. Hi, Katie, this is Ben with Team Home Hero. The guy's been emailing your house to check out. And I'm curious if you're looking for fun, or if you're looking into making a move. And if she's like, oh, I'm looking to making a move. And they're like, oh, well, what's got you looking at making a move? Because the biggest thing I want to get into right away from the start is, why do you want to buy a house? Why are you looking at houses? And I said it in a conversational way, a friendly way, instead of just being like, why are you looking at houses? And you can feel the tone of that compared to like, oh, well, I'm curious what has you looking into a house. That's when you really want to write down. I'm curious is a powerful little like beginning part of a phrase that you can use to get people to be open and everything. So I'm curious what has you looking into getting a new house. And you can feel the tone, you can feel the energy, you can feel the warmth of that. And like I said before, you can't say, you can say the right thing to the wrong, you can't say the right thing to the wrong person. You can't say the wrong thing to the right person. If they're looking to buy a house, if they have a need, they need help, you know, maybe they're a reload that's looking to move here, or maybe they're a seller that comes through as a buyer lead that wants to know what's going on in the market. They signed up on the website for a reason. They put in their full name and number and email for a reason on everything. So you can't fall into this idea of like, these leads are bad and these are bullshit and this and that. Because part of our strategy too is like, we know we'll have 2,000 people visit our website, 200 of those sign up, probably about 20 of those actually need our help. I'm not worried about the 1980. I'm worried about the 20 that do want our help and focusing on them and going hard on them on everything. And you do that through a warm conversation. What you'll find most of the time too is when you have a good approach and a good service conversation, these people freaking love you for it, for calling them, and they thank you by the end of the call. And they appreciate your warmth and care and attention for this because we're in a service-based business. Like, yeah, it's sales, yeah, it's marketing, real estate, negotiating, all that, but it starts with service. And we're providing a service for people online, meeting them where they're at way before everyone else, so that they're buying into us and not just, I want to buy a house and Zillow and realtor.com and all this. You know, if you ever worked with Zillow and realtor.com leads and some of those very bottom of the funnel leads, you can notice that they could be some of the biggest assholes you've ever worked with because they have this entitlement attitude that they're the most important thing in the world and that they can just treat you like shit and you got to deal with it. And if you ever work with them, that's the case. And you probably ran into some of this with your friends and family too. If you're like me and trying to figure out like, man, there's got to be a better way to doing this because I like doing this. I'm good at it. I really appreciate the clients who appreciate me back. And man, if I could, I'd rather just work with them and that's it. You know, and this is how you do it, is you have a good filtering conversation, opening conversation, so that you can really have like attract like. Because if you're a warm, nice, kind, welcoming person, kind of like I am, you want to work with warm, nice, kind, welcoming people as well. but you don't want to get treated like a doormat and stand up for yourself when people start to abuse you and treat you badly and that kind of thing, because you're kind of asking for it if you allow that behavior, tolerate that behavior, and put up with it, because you're like, I gotta have this deal, I gotta have this client, I gotta have this check because this is my only client in the world, and I gotta put up with this shit because I don't lead generate and I don't conversate enough on everything. And part of the conversate enough thing is, you don't want to get one of these and be like, oh, I got a good person, let me just spend all my time and attention on this one person. I'm working, I'm doing things. Like, you need to have a pool. Like, let's see, I got 16 buyers right now and like 14 sellers that I'm in open like conversation and relationship with to try to help them find the right house or when's the right time to sell their house. And it's because I have so many of them that I'm able to be more selective of who I want to work with, because I've positioned myself that way. I've set myself up for that, so I don't have to put up with a lot of the crap that a lot of agents put up with. Because at the end of the day, you got to realize, like, we're contractors. We don't work for everyone. We don't have to work for everyone. I came from the construction contracting side of things first. And, I kind of just continue that attitude all the way through this. And a lot of people trust me with working on their entire house just because of like the intention, the genuineness, the warmth, the care like that I had for them, even though like I wasn't, the biggest name in town, but I wasn't just some bum off the street. I was a value to them and they could see that. And I spent the time with them and I got to know them and what they're wanting to do and that kind of thing. And so you do that same thing with real estate through a valid conversation, a valid opener conversation, so you can start the relationship, because it is a relationship, but it's a working service relationship. Because here's one of the biggest like mindsets you can have that Jeremy Miner taught me, that it's like your clients only care about you to the extent that you can get them what they want. Like, yes, the relationship is involved. They want to know about you as a person to the extent as it relates to, can I trust this person? Will they transact the house? Do they get me? Do they understand me? Are they going to get me what I want? Amazon, Uber, Netflix, all those models are proof of that the consumer has more in mind of who they are and what they want than necessarily like, oh, I got to go support my buddy that's a realtor, on everything. And that's why you're seeing so many, people that are really learning the online lead game and just embracing and adopting that fact that it's like the consumer just wants what they want. Easiest, fastest, most convenient, like quickest on this. And this is how, in a lot of ways, like, I'm winning over people's clients that used to work with someone else that now work with me because I provided a service for them better than, their previous agent did. And that's why they didn't work with their previous agent, is because they got on my website and they were looking at houses and I was there for them and I met them and I knew their situation on everything. And I didn't steal anything, but there's certain people who think I stole their client because their client got on my website, just like people think Zillow is stealing people's clients. Like, they're not stealing them. We're providing a better service that those clients and consumers are choosing to use better than who they used before. So it's kind of like, instead of being mad at Zillow and mad at all these other marketing companies, like, go learn from them, like, do what they do, but better. And each of us can do this with whatever CRM, whatever website you have. You just got to put in the effort and you got to position yourself that way. But to continue that conversation of the opening conversation, they say that once they start to give me my, give me everything they're looking for, why they're moving is the most important thing. It's the biggest thing I want to know first and foremost. And I really want to dig in on like why they're moving and what that does for them and how that matters. And, go 3 to 7 questions deep on, like, a lot of times it's like job opportunities. I love reloads, to be honest with you, because they're higher price points and they don't quite give you as much of the kickback and resistance to everyone else. They value your knowledge, they value your expertise, and honestly, I like welcoming people to Wichita and growing our city and having outsiders come in and live here on everything. So depending on their situation, then from there you get very, granular and contextual on what their situation is. But then you can follow, I know like most people are familiar with LP Mama or like LM Papa. And I have a similar one with that. And this is why I call it the science and art of a sales conversation, because you don't want to be rigid and just like reading down the screen, but you should cover some initial things like, is there a particular area that you're looking in, particular side of town, school district, church you want to be in, workplace you want to need to be at, and be prepared too when you start asking these leads or these people deeper, like beyond surface level questions. You got to give them some time and space to process it and to think and evaluate, because most people do not ask them these deeper questions. And most people do not like go this far with people. Like, we're very surface level, we're very transactional. What house do you want? What price point? like, where do you want it? When do you want it? And that's it. You got to really get into like caring about people and learning about them as a person in their situation. But the thing is with this too, is like, you got to be fast and efficient with it. These phone calls really should be like 3 to 8 minute conversations at tops on everything. Why? Because not everybody actually buys a house, even though they have good intentions, even though they are wanting to. You can't afford to sit on the phone for 15, 20 minutes with these people and just yak and yak and yak all day. That's why I say you really got to lead these conversations, and you can't just let them run like off the radar with these things, because you got a business to run and you got people to help. And the more you spend any time on one person, it's taking away from all the other people you can help. So 3 to 8 minutes is the ideal like time frame you should be aiming for on your phone calls. If you're not measuring that or tracking that, start doing that now. Same thing with your friends and family. Honestly, any opening real estate conversation, in a lot of ways, any conversation over the phone should be like 3 to 5 minutes. When you start going past 5 minutes, people start checking out. It's redundant. It's not efficient. Like, we're getting off base. We're just blabbing to be blabbing, and it's really not getting to the point. So you can tell I'm a high D. Very just get the shit done and let's go. And so I've kind of had to learn to slow down a little bit, say like, hey, let's take the human element into account for this. Can't be so transactional. You got to get to know people, because that's where the repeat business, the referrals, everything else comes into this. But as you go through LM Papa, you ask, is there a particular area, what has you looking is the motivation one. That's the why. Is there a particular price point or monthly payment you want to stay around? And then, you can go from there being like, do you have a house to sell, or are you renting right now? That's usually where you can find out, what their situation is there, if they're a seller, if they're a renter. And once you start to like understand the situation, you kind of have a profile and avatar of understanding these people and who they are and what their situation is and how you can help them. And then work all the way through that. And then from there, at the end of it, there's two phrases I want you to use that work really well for people. Would it be helpful if I sent you market data for your home so you could kind of tell what you could sell that for when it's time for that? Would you be open to sitting down and putting together a game plan for your buying situation, so when it's time like to make an offer, you're prepared and ready, so you don't feel rushed into it? And most people are like, yeah, I think that would be helpful. Let's meet, let's get comfortable with this, let's get prepared, let's get your finances lined up, let's look at a few houses together in the office, set these things up, maybe go look at a few just to get a feel for this whole process, and everything. So the more you can make your people feel comfortable and trust you by taking like a step at a time, step by step by step by step. Another phrase I use pretty commonly, it helps a lot, is like, we're going to do this XYZ and then go from there. Once we get together and sit down and go over the game plan, we'll have more of an understanding of what you want and where you want to go, and then we'll go from there. Once we do the inspection, we'll review it and do a repair request, and then we'll go from there. Because what you get a lot of times is your people don't know what the next steps are, and then they start worrying, they start having anxiety, they start calling you at 10 o'clock on Saturday night, texting you on Saturday, this and that, because you didn't give them the next thing to focus on for them to quit worrying about, because they're wanting to know all these 10,000 different things are going on, instead of being like, focus on this thing, get to that point, then we'll go from there. And that's how you lead people. You tell them, focus on this, get to there, and we'll go from there. Instead of being like, well, what about the inspection, the earnest money and repair requests and appraisal and closing and this and that? And like, because they're freaking out, they're going nuts. This is where it's complicated. And you've got to give them certainty and confidence by leading them through each step of the way of everything, and just focusing on the next right thing, and be like, let's get to this point, go from there, get to this point, go from there, get to this point, go from there. So that kind of gives you an idea of like, how to end the conversations well, is give them something to focus on so that they can keep their mind calm and quit worrying about things. But it also allows you to follow up specifically on that thing, whatever it is you said you were going to follow up with them on, whether that's market data that you sent them on their house, houses that you sent to them, getting them pre-qualified for their financing and discussing that, sitting down with the game plan, checking back in with them a month, 2 months, 3 months later, whatever it is, checking back in on the job opportunity, whatever it is that's specific, that's your reason for calling. Because here's the two things that everybody has in their mind when somebody gets a phone call. Who is it? What do you want? Even if it's your friends and family, even if you know who it is. Who is it? What do you want? Who is it? What do you want? If you can just keep those two key things at the front of your mind when you're calling somebody. Hey, it's Ben, I'm calling about XYZ. And you can use some contextual stuff in there. for like relationships and things, about people. But most of the time when you're making a business call, you need to be straight to the point, direct, because what you're doing is you're saving people time, and people value their time more than anything. And their time is under attack and threatened more than anything. So doing more and taking more of their time and talking more isn't necessarily a value in today's day age. The value in today's day and age is getting the shit done sooner, faster, easier, better, and just getting people the result they want. Especially when we're in a result-based business, like being a realtor, we only get paid for the results we produce. We don't get paid the longer time we spend with somebody. Now, I want you to feel valued, important, significant, like you got everything you need, but me spending more time with you does not pay me more money. So you got to put that together. But sometimes as realtors, we get confused by that fact that we think we're providing more value because we're spending more time and we're saying more things, when a lot of times this person's like, can we go now? Are we done? I'm ready to get out of here on everything. So I went over some of the openers, some key phrases to help in there, and then ending the conversation really goes into, having the clear next step set up, for you and for them on everything, so that what the next step is, they know what the next step is. And then that gives people, confidence to actually make decisions, move forward, that kind of thing. So would it be helpful? Would you be open to? I always set my appointments in the form of questions. And, I know so many people want to be like, what's your closing phrase and closing questions and this and that. And I was like, dude, it's not that difficult when you've done the beginning part of the conversation and you've set it up that right. Closes should feel natural and easy. In a lot of ways, they should be closing themselves. They should be asking you, hey, can we get together? Can we sit down? Can we do this? Hey, can I offer on this property? Do I want to do this? Because if you provide enough service and value up front, they're going to ask you some of that. Literally, I was on a showing the other day and the client got it out before I could even get it out if they wanted to offer on the property. So at the end of the property, I was like, what'd you like about this house? What'd you not like about it? Scale 0 to 10, where would you rate it? I'm like, oh, I think we're an 8. She's a 9. And he was like, hey, what do you think, honey? You want to offer on it? He did it himself. So a lot of these times, it's not it's some slick, crazy phrase that used to close people. It's a service relationship and a service conversation, and you're leading people down the path to get what they want. And, it really should not be that difficult when you're finding the right people. Because if you lead generate and you conversate enough, you're going to find the right people. And a lot of that, right now is that we haven't really been having to do that as much for the last 2 years. It's kind of in some ways coming to us, and we've got kind of sloppy and we haven't really had to do as much of this. But now it's the few that'll actually go out and hunt for their food and actually go get the deals and do the business. And you do it through conversations, both sales conversations and marketing conversations that are service oriented, that are designed to help people, to meet them where they're at, where you're speaking the language that they want to hear. Because the truth is, a lot of your marketing and sales stuff is not going to land with 90% of the people listening to it, because they're not in the market to buy and sell houses. And that's fine. Just ignore it, scroll past it, whatever. But the people who are in the market to buy and sell houses, it's going to land, it's going to stick, they're going to hear it, they're going to resonate with it, and they're going to want to listen to more of what you have to say, because you're speaking to who you want, not speaking to everyone on everything. So it's actually the narrower you get, the better you get with everything. And you can use, some ending conversation or ending closes just as a service, as to bring clarity, to put it on the schedule, to be I have time on Tuesday at 1:30 or Thursday at 2:30. Which one of those works better for you? Or the other one I like to do too is hey, when are you typically free? I'll look at my schedule, block up time on mine and for yours and that kind of thing. And that way you have it set in time in your calendar, in your schedule. And if you follow a schedule, you follow the calendar, that's actually what freedom looks like. They treat you like a professional. When you act like a professional, it also says to them, you're not the only client in the world, and I want to give you good service, but let me give you my time. Let me block it off for you. When are you free? When are you typically free that I can block off time for you and give it to you? Because I treat it as a valuable. I'm not just acting like I got all the time in the world. I'll do whatever you want and however you want, whatever, because I got no one else out here. I think one of the only other things I want to hit on, and then I'll be done with this, is timeline. Because I think that's the biggest piece that's missing from LM Papa, LP Mama, whatever you want to call it, is somebody's timeline, because their timeline is the most motivating factor that's out there. In a lot of ways, you can't convince someone to move faster than what makes sense for their life situation. If they got a job coming up, if they, getting ready to retire, whatever that is, you can't change the fact about their timeline. And knowing their timeline is where you gauge the level of service they need. If they're ready to move right away and all that, their timeline's now, and you should be organizing your leads in your CRM or your sheet, your Google Sheet, spreadsheet, whiteboard, whatever you use to organize it based on their timeline, because that is the most motivating factor there is. And it's just about being there, being present, being with them, being available. Another one of my coaches put this one out there. You can't be chosen if you're not an option. You just want to be an option with these people, especially because you're running into a lot of carriers starting to not only block phone calls, but also block text messages. So it's getting harder and harder to reach these people and get in on a personal level as their agent. And the way you can do that, and that I get around that, is like I'll make phone calls through my CRM, through the dialer. But as soon as I get a connection and I get somebody that actually picks up the phone on everything, and we have a good conversation, when I get off the phone, I say, I'm going to send you my personal contact card, easy to save on your phone. I go to my iPhone and I go to my contact card, I text it to them, and I type under there, here's my personal contact card to easily save in your phone. Because when I'm saved in their phone, all the calls are going to go through now. Plus they have my name, they have my socials, they have my email, they have my website, they have everything to go creep on me, because your people are creeping on you whether you realize it or not. And if there's nothing out there, they're going to assume the worst about you. So you got to make sure that all of these things support your sales efforts of what you're doing. These marketing things like reviews and content and emails support all of your sales efforts with everything. So I know I said I was just going to go over sales conversations, but I want to give you just as much as I can in value with everything. But timeline is probably the most motivating factor that you can organize and filter people out by, and staying there with them. You know, that along with watching their online activity and really just chasing and pursuing and dealing with the people that are open emails and are very active on that. Because that way you're talking to people who want to talk to you and vice versa, and you're not bothering the people that don't. But I'm going to leave it at that so we can do Q&A. And Gary, hopefully that wasn't too long, or if that's the right amount of time, you tell me.
No, you're good. Perfect.
That was fun.
Yeah, it was. You know, any questions? I mean, I got some takeaways I like to share, man.
Yeah.
So this is powerful, and I think everyone should write this down because this is so huge. Everyone is an internet lead.
Yep.
Man, that's so strong, because you know that one of the things that we do as agents, we take things for granted. We think just because they're a referral or their friends and family that we got to shoe in. And what happens is we start taking shortcuts, we start skipping steps. So, you know, just going back to the basics, man, that's so powerful. You got to treat everybody like their internet lead. You can't assume anything, right? Yep. So that was strong. And this is I
want to give you a little, like, I don't want to say dirty because that paints the wrong picture, but I want to give you a little secret that I do in my CRM that I'm just going to tell you because it works. I keep a track record of everyone that says they got a realtor and closed a house already, because I'm marketing to them long term. Because if you didn't do a good job with them as your realtor and they're pissed off at you and they're not going to use you again in 3 to 5 years, I want to be there to be their agent.
Absolutely.
And so it's like everybody is an online lead, and you can't fool yourself thinking like your people aren't in someone else's CRM.
Right. Absolutely.
Like, because we don't own people. Nobody owns anybody.
Right. Absolutely. That's so true.
Right.
The other one I want you guys to make sure you write down is, you know, Ben was talking about 14 buyers and 14 sellers. You know, with that, it's so true too, is when you deal with abundance, you have choices. Like not everybody wants to work with everybody, right? Even as agents, sometimes we, like Ben was saying, we have clients that we don't want to work with. And how sweet would it be to say, you know, we just aren't vibing, so I'm not going to do business with you, you know? So ultimately, like you said, man, we're 1099. So, and that comes from conversation. So you guys should be doing that. Abundance, you have choices. So find the right people to work with, right?
And the way you tell somebody you don't want to work with them is you just quit following up with them. You don't have to have that difficult, weird, awkward conversation. When you're basing your business model off of marketing and sales service like I am, you just leave them alone. Like most of them are not going to come chase you and pursue you. And if they are, that's a big red flag. Like, why are you pursuing me so hard? Like, why does no one else want to work with you?
Right. And the other takeaway, you guys, and I always talk about this too, is the next step. You know, we're going to do A and then we're going to do B, right? Just giving them the next step. So many times, you know, we settle for, okay, so you're going to get pre-approval, you're going to do this, you're going to do that, and you're going to give them this huge laundry list of like 10, 15, 20 things. It's like, they don't remember that stuff. So every time you have a recap, you guys, that's so powerful too, is we're going to do this and then we're going to do that, right? Because that just paints a little, like Ben was saying, the next step, because that's really all they can focus on is what's coming up next. Right. Yep. So that's powerful too. So good stuff, man. I love it. So anybody else have any questions or comments? Come on, you guys. That was some.
Don't be shy. Hey,
Yeah,
how
don't
you
be-
participate here is how you participate everywhere. So
That's
if you're
right.
shy to speak up, get going. Like, come on. I know you got them in there.
And I know most of you guys are talkers anyway, but now you're trying to be all bashful. Come on now. Ali, Tony.
I'll talk. What's
Okay,
new?
there you go.
So it's Tammy, for those of
What's
you
up,
that
Tammy?
don't know me
What's
with
up,
the Grand
Tammy?
Johnson
Nice to
Group.
meet you, Tammy.
And I think, you know what, I was texting Gary, and, you know, these Mondays have been in fruition for a long time. And every time you get on there, even though we're team leaders, we're top agents, we're running all that stuff, it's always a good reminder. And it's coming out of somebody else's mouth where it kind of reminds you to go, oh yeah, I should get better a little bit at that. You know, or I should do X or Y. And I think the more that we take this hour and we're sharing, because how this all started is we're all doing the same, reinventing the wheel with our teams and not sharing with each other. And so Ben, thank you. Thank you so much for jumping on here. I know that I've done it as well. And it's just one of those things. If we can share the information, it clicks something in this brain mass that goes, oh yeah, I got to get back to that, or I need to 86 that, or I should tell my team X. That, you know, that's what this is about, the collaboration.
Yep, for sure.
Yeah, absolutely. 100%. Collaboration is definitely king. You know, I got some other stuff written down. I don't want to hog the floor, but if nobody else has anything, you know, another important piece that you mentioned in the beginning that I really love too, is learn how to ask those skilled questions, is how you phrased it. Skilled questions.
Yep.
Let's just kind of recap that real quick, because I think right now we're in a skill set market.
Yep.
What are a couple of those skilled questions that you would advise someone to, you know, like, how would you phrase it with like buyers?
So Ali just asked this question. I think I'm saying his name right too. He was asking who's the sales trainer again was, and it was Jeremy Meyer that really trained this in me and really developed it, because I went through one of his like whole course workshop things, and like I applied it specifically to real estate, but you could apply it to insurance, to, you know, to anything really that goes through it. But a lot of those skilled questions I kind of developed over time as just kind of like working through things and trying things out and seeing what worked, and also consulting with other people. But that first one is just, you know, are you looking for fun, or are you looking into making a move, is part of it. A lot of it comes down to just being genuinely curious about people too, and wanting to know more in depth, like who they are and what's going on there, and going 3 to 7 levels deep with it all. And this is where, you know, I know people, sorry, my dog's barking. No. Sometimes like people really want to know like what is the exact words to say, but the thing is words are only 7%. It's more so has to do with your energy and your body language of everything. And you want to trust yourself to just be conversational, be yourself, because that's why people usually hate scripts, because like it just doesn't feel like me. And like I get that, but you need to like address the topic of what it is that you need to go through. And that's where I think Ellen Papa is a good framework. Be like, make sure you cover these things to cover the grounds on this. But most of the time, like you can kind of, I don't want to say figure it out, but you kind of know logically what the next step is, or how to lead people through the next thing, as long as you're just detailed enough with these questions. And there's a book also I want to recommend called The Way of the Superior Man. It's not about just men. It's about masculine and feminine energy and how to deal with people. And usually you want to be about 60% masculine, you know, getting stuff done, and about 40% feminine, where it's like, let's talk about it, let's address the feelings, let's look at all the situations. And you want to have kind of a good marriage of those two, of how to deal with that. But a lot of this should come genuinely like from your heart to help people in service.
Absolutely. And one more thing you just said too is, you know, go 3 to 7 questions deep, or levels deep. So many times, you know, I know this to be true. You got to ask the right questions in the right order, and to the right person, right? Like you said. And so just in your mind, you guys just make sure. That's why even if you don't have scripts, you still have to have a kind of a idea of how the concept of your dialogue is going to go. So even if you just write down bullet points or whatever, just keep you on track, you know, do that, because it just flows better. Right. And so, man, good stuff. I think that's all I have, man. That was fire. I love it. A lot of good information.
I appreciate you guys letting me get on and talk and teach and go over this, because, you know, I get something out of it by making sure like I got to be doing this stuff. I can't be sitting up here talking about it, not walking the walk. Like I got to be doing what I'm actually teaching and saying, and it helps me be a better agent.
Yeah,
everything.
absolutely.
So
Well,
I
you
gotta
got
keep my skills sharp.
Well, you got 28 people that you're in conversations with, so you're doing something right. So keep up the good work, man. And then I think next week, you guys, just to give us a plug in, like Tammy said, these calls are always fire. If I'm not mistaken, Sarah and Jason, we have Richard to go next Monday.
Yes, that's right.
Okay, perfect. All right. Well, for today, Ben, you're a fire. Appreciate you, man. You look good.
Yep.
Keep up
Thanks.
the good work, and we'll see you guys soon.
Sounds good, guys. See ya.
See ya.